So the next thing, some of you may remember several episodes ago, Marilyn Manson has been sued by several women for various sexual abuse related claims. And of all those suits, one of the main suits comes on behalf of Esme Bianco of Game of Thrones fame. She sued him back in February. The reason hers is one of the biggest cases is that she's one of the co-creators of the Phoenix Act, which might as well be the Marilyn Manson domestic abuse law because it was created by her and Marilyn Manson's ex-wife, Evan Rachel Wood. It essentially expands the window of time that women have to report domestic abuse crimes. And even though it shouldn't matter that she's famous, it does matter. And then you add to that the element of Marilyn Manson, the Antichrist superstar, this grotesque, fucked up creature getting his evil hands on her and doing all this crazy shit. And people love to speculate about Marilyn Manson in the first place anyway. It adds a lot of intrigue to the story, so I get why everyone has made a big deal about it. Esme Bianco alleges that Manson abused her in several ways, that there were non-consensual incidents of sexual battery, including, quote, spanking, biting, cutting, and whipping Miss Bianco's buttocks, breasts, and genitals for Mr. Warner's sexual gratification, all without the consent of the plaintiff. Now, all of that, I mean, those are very serious allegations, and it's way fucked up, no doubt. The fact that there are so many cases and there's so many similarities leads you to believe that maybe Marilyn Manson is involved in this sort of lifestyle. Now, if you ask Marilyn Manson, he says, absolutely, I'm involved in this sort of lifestyle. And in fact, basically, he says, this is how I fuck. I mean, some of these stories are harrowing. If you even just look at the allegations that Evan Rachel Wood, his ex-wife, made, there's a lot of similarities, as I said, between all of these stories. One of the common denominators in everything is that it wasn't about beating women up. It wasn't about a frustrated guy who, you know, oh, my lady sassed me, so I had to slap her around. It's nothing like that. It's all sexual. This is all some sort of fucked up sexual gratification that Marilyn Manson gets out of the fear that he can bring about in these women, the submission. And these are common themes in S&M. And it's also very common that somebody can go too far. Now, Marilyn Manson, when it came to Evan Rachel Wood, he was really open about how fanatical he was about her. And he had referred to, at some point, they broke up for a second. He called her 158 times in a day, and that he would often, hold on, I have the quote right here. He would fantasize about, quote, smashing her skull in with a sledgehammer. I mean, these were interviews. The quote I just read is from Metal Hammer magazine. People like to think that there's some sort of difference between Marilyn Manson and this dude Brian Warner, who's the original guy, and I really don't think so. In fact, I think Brian Warner might be more fucked up than Marilyn Manson, if anything. If you look at it, there is a progression there. You look back to his ex-wives, Dita Von Teese, Rose McGowan. They said that this never happened to them. And Rose McGowan is one of the godmothers of the Me Too movement. So if there was anything there, you know she would have said something. Dita Von Teese, an S&M model, who knows? Maybe that's how she fucks too. Marilyn Manson is currently married. But I mean, you can definitely see after Dita, I don't know if something changed. I don't know what it was, but you see a real shift because from there, it's all like much younger women. He would tell these women how to dress. He took complete control of these women. And it really, that's what a lot of this is about. There's one story where a woman wakes up completely tied and he's fucking her and all that stuff. There's stories of a woman says he chased her around the house with an axe. Just really insane, over-the-top shit. But considering that it's Marilyn Manson, you say, well, okay, that makes sense. And that's been the thing that's been so weird about this case. Marilyn Manson is such a sort of out front, ghoulish, fucked up character that it doesn't necessarily move people. I mean, what are we to say about Marilyn Manson that really hadn't already been said? And that works against a lot of these women. And if you're somebody who wasn't around for Marilyn Manson's big run in the mid-90s as the Antichrist superstar, then you just really can't understand why there doesn't seem to be a lot of empathy out there for these women. I know Evan Rachel Wood, in trying to advance the Phoenix Act, she came out and spoke about this on multiple occasions over the years. And she never used Marilyn Manson's name directly. However, she was clearly talking about him because she was talking about a famous musician she married in her teens, and that's Marilyn Manson. But she had never really out front said his name, and nobody really ever gave a fuck. If anything, this is all on brand for him. And that's going to be what these women are facing. The judge in whatever civil court they go to is not going to be some woke 28-year-old, friend of the cause white knight type. It's going to be an old white guy, and he's going to say, well, you started fucking Marilyn Manson. What did you expect? A lot of these women were living with him at the time, so there's an element of like, well, I mean, you were there of your own accord. And I'm not saying that's fair. I'm just saying that's what's out there. Well, Marilyn Manson's legal team, after laying low for a while, they are striking back at Esme Bianco, and they are trying to get the sexual abuse lawsuit against him thrown out. Marilyn Manson's legal team accused the women of conspiring together to monetize and exploit the Me Too movement. And this is a quote from Manson's lawyer. These individuals, including plaintiffs, spent months plotting, workshopping, and fine-tuning their stories to turn what were consensual friendships and relationships with Warner from more than a decade ago into twisted tales that bear no resemblance to reality. Without a shred of evidence to support their claims, plaintiff and her co-conspirators are desperately trying to conflate the imagery and artistry of Warner's shock rock stage persona, quote-unquote, Marilyn Manson, with a fabricated account of abuse. And this is a bit of an about face, I guess, for Marilyn Manson, because at the beginning of this, when Evan Rachel Wood first came out and accused him of these domestic abuse violations, at the beginning, Marilyn Manson came out, and his exact wording here, in fact, I have the quote, "Obviously, my art and my life have long been magnets for controversy, but these recent claims about me are horrible distortions of reality. My intimate relationships have always been entirely consensual with like-minded partners, regardless of how and why others are now choosing to misrepresent the past. That is the truth." And now here you have his lawyer saying that Marilyn Manson is a totally different thing. That's not even real. That's a fake character. One thing that was very clear during the Evan Rachel Wood thing, and it's really continued all throughout. I know very recently Marilyn Manson has come off of absinthe. He had gotten into this weird spiral where he was getting fucked up on absinthe and cocaine. If you've ever drank absinthe and if you've ever done cocaine, imagine mixing those two. I mean, that sounds like pure insanity. Absinthe is like 100, it's over 100 proof. It's a hard liquor that makes you kind of trip balls. And then on top of it, you're coked up. That sounds like a recipe for total insanity. And I know Evan Rachel Wood had stories of, she came into the house and Manson had scrawled writings on the walls and he had nailed little bags of cocaine up everywhere on the walls and shit. Guy's been really out of his mind for a while now, and he lives way the fuck out on the fringes of society. I feel like on some level he's acting out. If you're someone who's an artist yourself, or if you work with bands or you're around creative people, then you've definitely met people that really, they're creating on a level that's way the fuck out there, and they don't necessarily expect to live. Marilyn Manson is one of these types of people, but as often happens, a lot of times these people do live and they end up weird, like zombies of themselves. When I look at Marilyn Manson now, I kind of think of like Interview with the Vampire, the classic vampire film with Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt. Tom Cruise's character, Lestat, you know, he starts off as high society and he's living the life and he's, you know, sucking the blood out of all these debutantes and shit. You come back, you find him later on in the movie and he's just a fucking ghoul living in a burnt down house, surviving off of rats and crocodiles and shit. You know, Marilyn Manson, he's almost like a Nosferatu type character at this point. He's pretty much a recluse. Whenever he does come out and perform, I mean, you can't even call him a shell of himself because he's almost unrecognizable as Marilyn Manson. He looks like if you took Marilyn Manson from 1994 and you just left him underwater for like 10 years and then you came back to check the corpse out and it's fucking super pale and bloated and fucked up. That's how Marilyn Manson is now. He's clearly a guy that did not expect to live this long. He has somehow survived, and now he's just this weird empty vessel floating around. But I've gone off on a tangent. Anyways, back to the Esme Bianco element of this case. They also use the fact that Esme Bianco's allegations fall outside that statute of limitations that the Phoenix Act was created to expand. The fact that it happened before that, it says, well, listen, we're out of that window. They can't fuck with us anymore. Bianco had previously said originally to Rolling Stone, quote, as millions of survivors like myself are painfully aware, our legal system is far from perfect. This is why I co-created the Phoenix Act, a law which gives precious additional healing time to thousands of domestic violence survivors. But while I fight for a more just legal system, I am also pursuing my right to demand my abuser be held to account using every avenue available to me. So Manson's motion, it's not attempting to throw everything out. It's just trying to attempt to strike the sexual abuse charges. He's also accused of human trafficking for the purpose of banging. That's a less legal term. But really, that accusation is saying that Esme Bianco, who is a Canadian citizen originally, he brought her to America under the lure of saying that he had work for her here. I guess he was going to put her in a video or a film he was working on. She came here, they worked on it, it didn't ever see the light of day. By then, she was just living with him and he was fucking her. She was married at the time, I believe. She left her husband to come live with Marilyn Manson, and that's when all this stuff apparently took place. To me, what really hurts her suit is some of the shit she complains about and tries to attach a monetary value to are really just things that, like, I don't know, man. These are just things you do with your girlfriend, like, especially when you're in a band and stuff like that. Like, okay, here, for example, and this is stuff that Manson is going to leave in the case, likely because it's so fucking ridiculous. She's claiming that Manson forced her to perform unpaid labor, which included serving and preparing food for Mr. Warner and his guests, cleaning his apartment, consulting on his album, providing uncredited backup vocals during the creative process for the album Born Villain, and being offered up to his guests and bandmates to spank. If you've ever been in a band or you've hung out with dudes in a band or something like that, you know that inevitably one of the guys in the band is going to have a girlfriend, and everybody meets at that guy's place. A lot of times the girlfriend sort of becomes the band, I don't know what to, I can't call her band mom because one of the guys is fucking her, but you know what I'm saying. And she ends up doing all these things. Now, if you're Esme Bianco, you could very easily say, hey man, fuck off, let's order some food or something like that. But is it insane that he asked his girlfriend to put together some food? Is it crazy to say, hey man, could you clean up around here? I don't know what their situation was. I mean, did he threaten to call the border patrol on her or some shit if she didn't clean the house? I don't know. That's not part of the suit. But it's also very common, like really for any artist, if you have something you're working on, If your girlfriend is living with you, you're often going to refer to her. And it's normally because this is somebody whose opinion you would value. So you say, hey, man, what do you think of this? Check it out. You know, and if you're a musician, you play it for her. If you're a visual artist, you show it to her and you get her feedback on it because you want to know what people think. And this is a person that's close to you, but it's not consulting services. I've seen it happen a billion times where you're hanging out with bands or you're involved with bands and somebody be like, oh, dude, we need a backing vocal there. We need like a chick's voice. Oh, dude, get your girlfriend to do it. It's not like something you could expect to get paid for. It's certainly not something you could sue for. So by striking all of the sexual elements of the suit, you're left with something that looks kind of fucking ridiculous, if I'm honest. The spanking thing was definitely another common denominator in these stories. In almost all the cases, Manson was whipping and, involved in general S&M, but in certain cases, he was trying to humiliate these women in front of his friends. Like in the case of Esme Bianco, he would have a party and have his buddies over, and he'd call her over and he would force her to show her tits to his friends, or he would pull her ass out and start whipping it in front of people. There was another accusation, and this is with a totally different accuser, that she had to fuck his friends and he would watch and jack off. So elements of humiliation there that he clearly gets off on. And of course, that part is just straight fucked up if it's not something that both people were down with. Now, she does claim that Mr. Warner, which is Manson's name, Brian Warner, implied that because he had brought Miss Bianco to the United States and provided housing, that she owed him labor and sexual intimacy. When you're trying to apply a monetary value to your boyfriend, asking you what you think about shit and asking you to, throw in backup vocals. Can you help me out? Hey, can you. So, I mean, of course, at the end of the day, these are really fucked up stories. There's enough there to where, I mean, if I'm just giving you my opinion, I think a lot of it is true. But at the same time, I kind of believe Manson when he says that as far as he was concerned, this was all just like what it is to be loved by Marilyn Manson. And if you look back at his history, he's always been given a pass. He comes out, he says this terrible shit. He openly does this terrible shit. No one's ever held him accountable up until now. So, I mean, why would he not think that this is normal? I mean, this might be Manson normal. Who fucking knows? If these women are suffering, then, I mean, that's fucking awful. And if Marilyn Manson did this in a punitive manner, then I think he should be held accountable. That being said, when you're talking about S&M, it's such a broad thing. I mean, you meet some chicks who are like, oh, I'm into S&M, and by that they mean like, a slap on the ass or something. If you run across a monster like Marilyn Manson who's gonna actually like do real shit and tie you up in all these knots and a ball gag in your mouth, and he's electrocuting your genitals and shit, you might be scared shitless and think he's gonna kill you, and in his mind this might just be like a ho-hum Saturday night. I don't know the fucking truth. This is complete speculation on my part. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think about it.